Chapter 2. Meeting God. I slowly opened my eyes, blinking as the bright light streamed into them, making it hard to see at first. Instinctively, I raised my arm to shield them from the glare. The sound of the wind whistled in my ears, and I could taste the sharp tang of salt on my lips. I lay there for a moment, dazed and confused, my mind racing. Am I still alive? Where am I? I wondered, trying to make sense of my surroundings. The air smelled of the ocean, but I couldn't remember how I got here or where here even was. I vaguely remember crashing into a tree. By all odds, I should be dead. Lying there, disoriented, I wondered, is this the afterlife? It was the only explanation that made sense. Just as I was lost in thought, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see the same driver who had caused the accident, standing there. Next to him was the cow that had been in the middle of the road, calmly chewing on some grass as if nothing had happened. He saw me and laughed, his laughter sounding godlike, deep, and resonant, nothing like the rich, bold young man he had been before. "Holy cow, that made my day," he laughed, extending a hand toward me. I hesitated for a moment, but reached out and let him pull me up. "Who are you, really?" I asked, still trying to make sense of everything. "Well, I'm God, of course, creator of the universe," he said with a grin, his teeth gleaming perfectly white. "But you look nothing like the God I knew, not even the international ones," I argued. "The international ones, ha ha, you are a funny man. The truth is, you know nothing," God laughed, glancing at the cow. "What do you think? Holy cow!" "I think he's a fool," the cow replied, still chewing on the grass. My eyes widened in disbelief. Did that cow just speak?" "Yes, he did. Now, will you believe me?" "You're dead, kid, and this is the afterlife," God explained. "No, not until you perform a miracle or something. For all I know, this could be some prank show, and I'd look pretty stupid if I just took your word for it," I replied stubbornly. God sighed. "Fine." With a wave of his hand, my body began to levitate off the ground. I flailed my arms, desperately trying to find something to hold on to, but I was rising higher by the second. Okay, I believe you now," I shouted in panic. "Good," he said, dropping me back to the ground with a thud. "Now, will you listen to me and believe what I say?" "Yes, I will," I replied, brushing the dirt off my clothes. "Walk with me," God said, turning and leading me further across the grassy landscape. "I'm not the God you know in the religious sense," he began, walking ahead, his golden hoodie reflecting the light with every step. "I created the universe, seeding it with life. In return, beings worship me, shaping my image. Certes, some people see me as God, others as Allah, Buddha, Vishnu, or many other names." He glanced at me briefly before continuing. "But in truth, I am beyond those forms. So what I'm seeing, this version of you, the designer hoodie, the gold watch, what religion is this?" I asked, still puzzled. "This?" God chuckled. "This is me as I see myself," he said, smiling. "Following the trend, eh?" I asked with a smirk. "Always," God replied, smiling. "Most people imagine me as this ultra-serious, all-powerful being who smites anyone who disagrees with me, but that's far from the truth." "Good for you. You created everything yet still choose to be humble," I said, surprised. "Thank you," God smiled. "However, we do have a serious matter at hand. You must be wondering why I brought you here. Let me show you." We reached a beach, and I saw a young guy struggling to crawl away from the ocean. His fingers dug into the sand as he pulled himself forward, inch by inch, his breath coming in shallow, rapid gasps. He looked exhausted, barely holding on. God gestured for me to stay back, then stepped forward to meet the man. "My child, you seem lost. Did the ocean not guide you toward your next life?" "Yo, what the Sigma?" the young man exclaimed, looking up in confusion. I cringed, shuddering involuntarily at his choice of words. To my absolute horror, God immediately shifted gears. "Skibbity toilet," he said, straight-faced, his tone completely changing. You see, bro, only those who ain't vibin' with the afterlife plan the ocean had for them end up on this beach like you. Far, no cap. The afterlife was bussin', but you decided to dip, and now you're here, my guy. The young man's eyes lit up in surprise. Yo, I didn't know you were chill like that, he said, a grin spreading across his face. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing, but apparently God's Gen Z slang was hitting the mark. God smiled. Aight, so here's the deal, my dude. You made it all the way to this beach, which means you swerved on every afterlife option fate had lined up for you. Straight up ghosted him. So, spill the tea. What you trying to do now? What kind of afterlife you want? Like, you want a vibe that's lit, or you just trying to chill forever? Your call, fam. The young man didn't even hesitate. Yo, I want reincarnation, just like in anime. I want to be OP, have mad power, insane wealth, and an anime waifu. No cap, none of the futash asteriska. Real waifu. His voice got louder and more hyped as he spoke. I stood there, mouth slightly open, trying to process what was happening. Bet, that can be arranged, God replied, nodding. I'm going to grant you that power, but how you use it, that's on you, my guy. No cap, you got full control. But I'm just saying, it'd be kinda lit if you did good with it, like help people out, be a real one, you feel? The young man nodded in agreement. Then, slowly, his body began to fade away, dissolving into the air like mist. He gave one last glance before vanishing completely, leaving only the faintest trace of his presence behind. You know he's not going to do any good, right? I asked God, raising an eyebrow. You should have just bonked him on the head and sent him straight to horny jail instead. God chuckled softly, shaking his head. I know, but I made a promise to myself to give everyone a chance, even someone like him. He paused, then turned to look me directly in the eyes, his godly aura radiating an intense energy that made the air around him seem to hum. No matter how flawed they may seem, everyone deserves their opportunity to choose their own path. He shook his head and sighed softly. Ever since reincarnation became a trend, more and more people have turned out like the guy you just saw. Sure, some started off pure-hearted, genuinely benefiting the worlds they were reincarnated into, but power, it corrupts even the purest souls. As their strength grew, many of them transformed into bullies, murderers, even rapists. His voice was heavy with a sense of regret, his eyes reflecting the weight of countless choices he had witnessed. I could sense the powerlessness he felt, the inner conflict he carried. If he denied those who wished to be reincarnated, he would break his own rule, the one he held himself to so firmly. For him, giving everyone a chance, even knowing the risks, was the right thing to do. It was his way of remaining true to his purpose, even if it came with the burden of watching them fall into darkness. And the other worlds, their residents, does not ask for reincarnation. Only human from Earth do? I asked. God shook his head, a hint of amusement in his expression. While there are residents of other worlds who have pondered the concept of reincarnation, none are as obsessed with it as Earthlings. The sheer volume of isekai manga and novels that flood your world is concerning. It's not a good thing? I asked. The fascination with reincarnation reflects a deep dissatisfaction with the world they live in. The desire to escape to a simpler, more idealistic world, often with overpowered abilities, is evidence of this. Life on Earth is hard, and your world is facing a decline both economically and culturally. People are turning to entertainment that is quick and uncomplicated. In Gen Z language, brain rot. I agree wholeheartedly, I said and nodded. People spent more time watching shorts than watching movies. Yes. However, I do not blame your generation. It's merely the result of an unsustainable environment. The middle-aged are taking from the youth, making their lives harder, God said. God shook his head, and after a brief pause, he continued speaking, his expression turning more serious. This is a problem, and that's why I brought you here. Some reincarnates are wreaking havoc in their worlds. and I need you to bring them back to me." "Back to you how?" I asked. "By bringing peace to them." God smiled. "So you mean killing them?" I raised my eyebrows. He didn't speak, but simply nodded, as if saying the word is against his character. So apparently God had tasked me with killing those who wreaked havoc on the worlds they were reincarnated into. Once they died, their souls would return to the ocean of fate. "I will give you a fraction of my power for now. First, the ability to understand all languages. Second, the ability to see in the dark. Third, the ability to learn with ease. These should be more than enough for the task I am sending you on," God said, placing his hand on my head. Instantly, the world around me exploded into vivid colors and perfect clarity. Suddenly, I felt my stomach churn. The sheer amount of power flooding into me made my head spin, and before I could stop it, I vomited onto the ground. "Remember your responsibility," God reminded me. "Proof to me that you are worthy of my trust. Then I'll grant you more power. Become stronger, sharpen your mind." How do I find the target?" I asked, breathing heavily. "You will need to figure that out yourself. There will be many challenges in your journey. Feel no rush, as I want you to learn as much as you can from each encounter," God said, his voice calm but firm. "Just don't get too carried away. Your main goal is to defeat those who abuse their power from reincarnation. For your first task, I will send you to a world with only one target. Find him and bring peace upon him. For that, you need to be strong and fit, charismatic enough to be friendly with the locals, and smart enough to figure out who is on your side. As for your physical strength, I can help you with, though it might be a little painful." He put his hand on my shoulder, and another wave of power hit me. I couldn't refuse. Too winded by all the reshaping happening inside my body, I felt my bones grow larger, my spine stretch to make me taller, and my muscles bulge. The pain was unbearable, sending me rolling on the ground. God looked down at me with a mix of pity and amusement. I gritted my teeth, determined to act tough despite the agony. Fortunately, the pain soon subsided. I stood up, and now, for the first time, my gaze was level with God's instead of having to look up at him. "Good. Now you look better," God said, patting my shoulder. "Anything else before I send you away?" "Just one question. How do I get back once I complete my mission?" I asked, though I was already afraid of the answer. "Death is the only way, but no worries. You will still be you. I'll make sure of that," God said, confirming my suspicion. "Now the ocean of fate will take you to where you need to be." Then he smiled and pushed me, falling into the ocean below. Some god he is, I thought, wide-eyed, as I flailed my arms while falling in what felt like slow motion. His smile vanished from view as I plunged into the water below. What a day, huh? First, I died in a crash and then found out my murderer was God himself. Without even asking for my permission, he tasked me with killing those who had been reincarnated, those who caused more harm than good to the worlds they were reborn into. I wonder if he chose me because I was a loner, someone who could disappear without raising suspicion, without anyone who would miss me. Does he think I'm a man with a golden heart? One thing's for sure, he was right. I was never a fan of reincarnation. In fictions, protagonists who got reincarnated always helped the people around them, saving the world they lived in. But people in the real world? They aren't saints. Everyone has a dark side: greed, selfishness, lust. Many wouldn't handle sudden possession of power well. Then, who would stop them when they crossed the line? That's why God needed someone like me, an inquisitor, to put a stop to those out of the line. I hope God didn't let them reincarnate in the first place. Well, what do I know? I'm just a man. The water didn't feel as cold as I thought it would as I fell into it.